I love when we get a poll that just gets Leroy so fired up and so upset.
Because it's ridiculous.
Why?
It's ridiculous. Because, look, man, I've been hearing about Tua for 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
You finally get Tua.
Yep.
And yet, the moment that makes you feel the best as a fan of this franchise is one play.
I don't deny that our wording is a little flimsy here because I feel like you're putting best and what felt better in the moment. Best moment is drafting Tua. Bigger moments drafting Tua.
Let me explain something to you.
But better in the moment, I think Miami Miracle holds up.
If you're talking about moments, right?
Yep.
There's no bigger moment than setting your team up for a number of years.
We don't know that.
You don't. But you've been talking about him like he's a guarantee.
That is the guy we wanted, yeah. Let's go out to the Toyota of Hollywood guest line shop. Over 1,500 Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. A man who had plenty of great moments with the Miami Dolphins, has an iconic game, of course, beating the Patriots in Foxborough, the Wildcat himself, and also does sidelines for the Auburn Sports Radio Network for the football broadcast. Ronnie Brown joined us. Ronnie, thanks for the time. Really appreciate it.
What's up, Ronnie?
Hey, no problem. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Oh, man, we appreciate you making some time for us. So we're having a little debate because obviously Dolphin fans very fired up. Leroy and I pitted up against each other in this one. We're just saying, what feels better in the moment for a Dolphin fan? The Miami Miracle, Kenyon Drake finishing off the win against the Patriots, or drafting Tua last week, which is a guy the Dolphin fan has basically been wanting for 2 years?
I think as a Miami Dolphins fan or trying to speak for the fans, I would say getting Tua because I think the Miami Miracle was great. It was still one game. And I think just looking at Tua and what the organization has been longing for is a quarterback for an extended period of time, someone to come in and solidify that role, hopefully for years to come. And, that's something that's been missing. So I think, the Miami hopeful have been waiting for someone that they feel can come in and fulfill that void.
Ronnie, I'd like to throw one more caveat into that feel good of the miracle, is that the Patriots went on to win the Super Bowl.
Right. So then you kind of don't really feel good because all you can say is we were the team that beat them, but they still won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Well, listen, it was a great day. It was a great day. I'm not saying I was wondering if it held up at all. So Ronnie, you being on the sidelines for Auburn, so you're definitely pitted up. You know the rivalry of Alabama and Auburn. So we got a couple guys that we want to ask you about because a couple of first round picks that went down, one on the Alabama side and one on the Auburn side. As far as Tua is concerned, Tua Tagovailoa, your chance, knowing that rivalry and knowing what he's got. What from your standpoint and covering the SEC? What do you think the Dolphin fan is getting in this guy? Do you think that he definitely has the goods to be the final franchise quarterback that we've been waiting for the longest time?
Well, I think it's funny because oddly enough, I think when you ask Miami Dolphins fans about Nick Saban, the sentiment isn't really high. But then to get some of his players, it's the opposite. And so when you look at Tua, one thing you will know is he's going to be well coached. He's tough. He enjoys the game of football, and he understands the game. So I think those intangibles are going to be great. But at the end of the day, man, just honestly, the question is, can guys stay healthy? And just to be honest, as a former player, the biggest part of that is some type of luck. You work out, you do all these things to put yourself in a situation to be as healthy as possible. But it's only so much you can control, honestly, because when you look at two grown men running into each other hard as they can, somebody's eventually going to be injured. And so, hopefully, this isn't the case with Tua. And unfortunately, at quarterback position, the injuries happen a little bit different because those guys aren't really protecting themselves because some of the hits they take are blindside hits or hits where their body's not really ready for them. So, I think Tua has all the intangibles. The biggest thing is surrounding him with other people who, are going to take some of that pressure off of him. Because being a former number one pick, there's a lot. When you have, that many picks and you don't do so well the previous season, there's a lot of needs that you want. And so the thing about Tua is he was surrounded by a large amount of talent at Alabama. And so, in trying to create that same type of environment in Miami, you want to make sure that you got the pieces around him. And I think Miami did a great job of doing that as well.
So when you say that the injury thing is luck, because Leroy and I have been kind of big, because I can't help myself. Now that they got him, now I want to see him play. But obviously, it's probably smarter, to bench him as long as possible, let him learn, and also, I guess get him as healthy as possible. Like, do you believe in the idea that not only benching him will help him to start off, is not only helpful for him to learn, but also you want him as healthy as possible? Or do you feel like he's only going to get to a certain point where he is what he is health-wise?
Yeah, I think that's to some degree it's only going to be he is what he is. But, I don't think there's any harm in allowing him to heal up even more. It hasn't been, that long since the surgery and, even trying to get back in football shape. I think the biomechanics of the body, you feel like you're ready, you feel good, the strength is there. But then have you been getting hit and beat up? Not necessarily. And then trying to recover on a weekly basis. So that's a whole different hurdle to have to jump over. It's one thing to go work out, stretch, and do all these things, but to run into individuals and them run into you on a weekly basis and get the muscle fatigue, being in that Miami heat, dehydration, all of that stuff plays a factor. And I think in the recovery process. But also, when you look at guys who've been drafted fairly high in the draft that have been able to sit for a little bit of time and to see the game and, to go through the routine of preparation and getting themselves as comfortable, a lot of times those guys have tended to be a little bit more successful because they've had the opportunity to not only just watch the game, and catch up to the speed of it, but then also just create their own routine, because a lot of people don't talk about the transition. It's a lot that goes on for a young man from the time of the draft up until time to play football. And so being able to manage the off-the-field stuff and put yourself in a situation to be successful on the field, that's just as important, because the last thing that guys need are distractions away from the game, because the game's hard enough in itself, and especially when you're a first-round guy, you're asked to do a lot and be a lot. And so being able to think about those things and just focus on football and get into a position where you're most comfortable, because that's all it is. You're trying to create environments where guys are more comfortable or most comfortable for them to be successful.
Ronnie, how many times did you have that little pregame test when you've been banged up and they give you that test and you look and feel good, and then the first play you go in, somebody comes at you and you try to make a sudden move and you back to where you started? Like,
it's a lot, man. Even with me from 2008 when I tore my ACL and coming back the first few games, man, I wasn't me. And the only thing, the guys know that in your mind. You know that. And unfortunately for trainers and for people in the health profession, when you're dealing with athletes, there's a comparison piece of it. And I think even after Adrian Peterson came back from his ACL, he's a different breed, but
right.
The expectations started to be like, well, if Adrian Peterson come back this fast, then most guys should be able to come back this fast as well. And so, and looking at that, for me, when I first got back, mentally, I'm like, I just want to be out there. So I'm trying to do everything in my mind. So even with the strength test and all of this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. But then coming out of certain cuts and out of certain breaks, I'm like, I'm not me, and so I learned to manage and to figure out how to play the game that way until I got to where I was. And fortunately, I made the Pro Bowl that year, but I still wasn't me for like at least 6 weeks. And so just knowing that, the athlete's mentality is a lot different than, a lot of individuals who aren't, athletes, because you learn to overcome, you learn to push those thresholds of pain, and you learn how to tolerate and deal with a lot of things that, you normally probably wouldn't deal with. And so also having the fact of being in a locker room, having that accountability factor, that also pushes guys to want to be able to go out there and a lot of times go out and be back in the thick of things before they probably should, because of the unwritten rule or the silent expectations of being accountable to your team, your teammates, your organization, and the fans.
We're talking to former Dolphins running back Ronnie Brown, also does sidelines on the Auburn football broadcast. Now, Ronnie, what are the Dolphin fans? What can they expect from their other first-round pick, number 30 overall, Noah Igbinoghene, the cornerback? What can they expect? You seem pretty fired up about him on social media. So, what are the Dolphin fans getting in him?
Well, yeah, I just know, he's an athletic individual. Both of his parents are track runners, and so, he has it naturally in his genes. But on top of that, he's a competitor. I got to see him. I was fortunate enough to get to see him on a weekly basis, to get to see that growth. He's only been playing defensive back for a couple of years now, so he has an opportunity to get so much better. But then also pairing him with some of the guys that they already have in Miami at defensive back, I think that's a huge part of it. Having Xavier Howard, a Byron Jones, to be able to, learn from those guys who've been at the position and played at a high level on this level. I think the upside is really great. And so, I think he's one of those individuals going to come in, have an impact. He could probably play some nickel, get inside. He can run with most people or all guys in the league, I think. And so, really just getting a competitive person who wants to learn, who wants to be great. And I think that's going to be a huge upside. And I think it's a great pick for Miami.
We appreciate the time, Ronnie. Thanks so much, man.
Ronnie, thanks, man.
No problem. Thank you.